Hello, good evening. My name is Roland. I'm the host for this evening. Welcome to Webmontag Frankfurt, the 17th edition, which you may have seen before. We have some issues with the slides, so sorry for that. Today we want to look abroad and want to see what we can learn from other countries if we want to learn something. What is Webmontag? Webmontag is a community event. We're trying to influence the network community or the community in general with having talks about different topics, IT, marketing, PR, whatever. We are not alone here in Frankfurt. There are about 60 Web Mondays in the German-speaking countries alone. So nearly every week there is one Web Monday somewhere around us. We in Frankfurt have the event almost every month, so every second Monday of a month. And we are very, very active in social media, mainly Twitter. So if you want to join the discussion, please follow our Twitter account, WMFRA, or the appropriate hashtag. We also have a live stream for all the people who cannot be here today. We have this every month, so if you want to be here but cannot make it, please click into our live stream. The next events we have scheduled are in June, Code is Poetry, where we are looking at the artistic side of programming. In July we have music as a topic. In August, summer break, and for September we are still looking for a topic. So thank you to the Brotfabrik who enables us this event with giving their venue to us. There are also nice events every week here, mainly music events. So if you're interested. We also have some sponsors enabling this evening. We have Arago, IT automation company. We have DMR Solutions, which are an e-commerce and mobile solutions. We have Hayes, maybe you know them as being a recruiting company. And we have Die Zentrale, which is a co-working space here in Frankfurt in Bergerstraße. We also have a job and event board, which you find outside in the lounge. So if you're looking for a new job, please visit it and maybe you'll find something interesting. So, international. So I would welcome our first speaker, which is Gennadiy Borisov. He is from Ukraine. He's permanently traveling between Belarus, Minsk, Miami, and New York. He worked in various media companies like MTV, Maxim Digital, for example. He was founder of actually MTV Ukraine. And now he's COO of a offshoring company focused on UX development, ClickerTech, and he's going to tell us something about doing business in the US and Latin America. So, Gennadiy.
Thank you. Good evening. It's a Monday evening. I will try to keep the presentation short and very lighthearted. And I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for taking the time and inviting me. Roland, I appreciate you guiding me through the process to prepare it. As Roland said, I was born in Ukraine, and during the course of my career, I've done business internationally on at least, I believe, 3 continents. And today, I want to talk about doing business internationally. Rather, when doing business internationally, do not be surprised when you see and experience certain things. As Roland said, we have offices in New York and Miami, and doing business in the United States and Latin America. Sometimes you are surprised when you experience certain things. I would like to start the presentation with a short video clip. I hope I can work this computer. I'm sure you've seen it, but do not be surprised at these 2 guys.
What's the buttons?
Oh no, they installed voice recognition technology in this lift. I heard about this.
Voice recognition technology in a lift in Scotland. You ever tried voice recognition technology?
No.
They don't do Scottish accents.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
11. 11.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
Whose idea was this? You need to try an American accent. 11. 11.
That sounds Irish, not American.
What, doesn't it? 11.
Where in America is that? Dublin?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
Try an English accent, right? 11. 11.
You for the same part of England as Dick Van Dyke?
Listen, you're saying smart ass.
Please speak slowly and clearly.
Smart ass.
11.
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
11. If you don't understand the lingo, away back came to your own country.
Ooh, is that talk now, is it? Away back to your own country?
Oh, don't start, Mr. Bleeding Heart. How can you be racist to a lift?
Please speak slowly and clearly.
And with that, as you see, those two were highly surprised. But Germany has one of the best economies in the world. I'm sure all of you at least already doing business with other countries or thinking about doing this business. And as I said, doing business in the United States and Latin America, do not be surprised if what I've learned, at least working with our partners, is that in Germany, you're expected to be on time and it's considered a good business practice. However, in the United States, do not be surprised if Americans, and I'm half American, I would say, are sometimes late, but the universal excuse is they're always stuck in traffic. I spent about 7 years working for MTV networks worldwide, and in MTV inside, there's an insider's joke saying that what time have we scheduled the meeting, the normal time or MTV time? MTV time is always 15 minutes late, and people who come to the meeting on time consider it too formal. However, in Latin America, if you do business with people in Latin America, do not expect people to be on time. It is rather an unusual occurrence when people in Latin America are on time. It means they deeply respect and value the relationship, but if they're not on time or tremendously late, do not be surprised. Based, again, on my experience in Germany, businessmen and businesswomen gather as much information before making a decision. And decisions do not come lightly. I agree with that because before making a significant business decision, it is great to take your time and make a decision based on all the facts. In the United States, sometimes we try to get to the point extremely fast because time is money and everybody's in a rush, especially in New York. New York time is usually much faster than time in other parts of the world, and one of the New Yorkers' jokes talks about a New York time in front of the traffic light. What's the shortest period of time known to man? It's a time between the traffic light in front of you turns green and New York taxi driver behind you starts blowing its horn. However, in Latin America, getting to the point may never come during the first, second, or third conversation. You will discuss absolutely everything from weather, sports, politics, family, your favorite pastimes, and only as an afterthought you may come to discuss business. But sometimes you never get to the point of discussing the business. Everything is mañana. I mean, my Spanish is almost non-existent, probably as bad as my German, but do not be surprised if all decisions are postponed. Again, in Germany, if a decision's been made, I understood and I realized that people come to respect that decision and honor that decision. and renegotiation sometimes is very unusual. In the United States, it is almost a badge of honor to make a decision, agree on something, and then renegotiate. Sometimes in good faith, sometimes in bad faith. But people always try to renegotiate. In Latin America, it is not even a badge of honor, it's an obligation. Before sometimes coming to decision, negotiations and renegotiations come into play. And after you agreed on a deal and even negotiated and renegotiated a deal, you may not hear from your business partner, sometimes never again. About a year ago, our company, we submitted 5 proposals to a very famous architectural design firm from Brazil. We've never heard back. Apparently, they just forgot their travel plans, and they felt uncomfortable submitting the response to a proposal when they went back to Brazil from Miami. In Germany, businesses would consider risk-taking a negative characteristic. It depends on your business. It depends on the risk you're about to take. However, in the United States, and especially in high-tech, taking risks is a very time-honored, if you will, tradition. If people don't take risks in technology, they're frowned upon by venture capitalists and sometimes their partners. But when dealing with businesses in Latin America, you will face 2 groups of people. One are probably elderly, more mature people who remember the old kind of dictatorship times with general in power. They never take risks. However, the younger generation, which feels this quasi-hit of super success coming from Northern America, from United States, they're all for taking risks and sometimes take those risks extremely lightheartedly. Again, doing business in Germany, what we've learned is when you address people by their first names, sometimes people are not used to it and may be offended. However, in the United States, if you would address me after a first handshake as Mr. Borisov, that would be very unusual. And people are much more used to being addressed by their first names. In Latin America, it's even more informal. And if you have a great conversation and you feel kind of the synergy and the easy flow of a conversation, you may become much more familiar with a person, especially if it's helped by a couple of drinks or a couple of bottles of wine during the dinner. Taking the time before using first names, as I said before, and developing close friendships comes slower in Europe and in Germany. However, in the United States, people are much faster to develop relationship on a first name basis and introduce yourself as their friend. In Latin America, I would say, see the previous slide, and the relationship become much closer, much faster. And pretty soon you're discussing very personal topics, and even business attire changes. Right now, for example, I'm staying in more of a formal way, but having a conversation or business meeting in Latin America, do not be surprised if my shirt would be unbuttoned pretty much up to here. And next step, touching. It is very atypical doing business in Europe and in Germany to touch somebody, beyond the handshake. In the United States, partners or people in a conversation would greet each other by clapping each other on the shoulder or grabbing your hand with 2 hands. In Latin America, do not be surprised if you're kissed, if you're hugged very personally and invited to an evening of entertainment. Any questions? As promised, I try to keep it very short. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Gennadiy. Great talk. So there are, in fact, things we can learn, especially with salutation. The "du" in Germany is very hard, and the risk-taking is something we should really improve. So we continue with our second speaker, which is Nicola Appel. Please come on stage. Yeah. Some of you may know Nicola from the bar camp Rhein-Main, which she's organizing.
Not by myself, though.
Yeah, part of the organizing team, or the Web Girls is another interesting.
You did your research.
Yes, kind of. Nicola worked and studied and lived for 5 years in San Francisco. And today she works for a global company, Articulate, and they're developing tools for e-learning. And she's, in fact, the only German employee there, and never meets her colleagues in real life, I guess, or only once a year, something like that.
I'll talk about that.
On Skype. Yeah, and she's telling about her experience in that role. Nicola, please.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it was actually quite a change. I was used to work at home, being in the home office as a freelancer before for 7 years, and actually had made the decision in between not to continue working from home, but being employed again and having like an office to go to, have colleagues to work with and exchange and have that creative exchange all together. And then then I went on vacation to the United States. I met some friends. They told me about this job, and I was like, this sounds really interesting. I'm really interested. I want to check it out. And then this whole digital company thing started, which is actually fascinating. You need to get used to it. But in my case, I had 5 interviews while I was on vacation and later on at home, all online. I mean, I had some video conferencing. They recorded me so they could show it to the superiors, and made the decision based on that. So I never had a personal contact with them, like we never met in person. I signed my contract digitally, so I there are tools that are verifying that this is actually a legal document. So in my case, I had to draw my signature with the mouse. Luckily, you can refresh several times because, of course, it doesn't turn out nicely at the first try. So that was interesting. And so, yeah, the first time I actually met my colleagues was at a conference in London, where they flew me in, and I was supporting them at the booth and presenting the products. So everything that I do and the way this whole company works is all digitally. So this is actually something that is actually not uncommon in the United States. You have several companies, work processes are more flexible, you work from home. You organize your work yourself, you have more reliability, you need to really make sure that the work is developed and delivered, and you're really judged and paid by what you're doing. It's my American colleagues, for example, they have a work contract where they have no defined vacation time. They have basically unlimited vacation time, but it's up to them when they take it and how they take it responsibly. So this is, I think, especially for Germans, a very uncommon concept, because we're very proud that we have all these social standards in our contracts. I have a German contract as well because I'm based in Germany, so they had to hire me with German law. But I find this quite interesting to see that it's still working, although for us Germans seems to be quite an unsecure or unsure concept altogether. So just to make this work, actually, the digital business or digital work environment, you need to have an openness for new structures. The structure needs to be set up so that things can work like that. You need to have certain tools that people can exchange with. We do video conferencing once a day, like the whole team meets every day for half an hour, which is called a stand-up meeting. And then we exchange, just give a brief update, what's going on, what do you do, what's the questions, and maybe some open stuff that needs to be clarified. You also need to have a leaner hierarchy. The people are easier to reach. I can email, I can chat with my superiors, I can reach them anytime as long as it's in my time zone. So that's, of course, a requirement, and which is quite a challenge, having these team meetings in a time zone that is convenient for all of us. And then also you need to have some training and the competencies to work with all the digital tools. And so there's really an emphasis on like how familiar, how comfortable do you feel in digital media. Consistency is actually wrong, so that's from another slide, I'm sorry. The really important part, or the point that is supposed to go here was you need to, that the significance or importance of work in your daily life is actually changing. Like, since you don't really have this full schedule from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 9 to 8 or whenever you start and stop working, that doesn't really work any longer, especially since I'm the only German employee. There are only 2 other people in the same time zone for that company, so you need to be a bit more flexible, which is good and bad. I mean, I can start later in the morning, I can take a longer lunch break. It's really depending on, like, I need to, of course, organize my schedule depending on what meetings we have and what appointments we have and what deadlines. But yeah, so the whole concept of like, yeah, work-life balance needs to be really reconsidered. Another topic I want to talk about today is e-learning, since this is like the second topic of my daily business, basically. So who actually here is interested and working in the e-learning industry or e-learning field? Hands up. Oh, just a few. Okay, interesting. So I just threw some of the main keywords that are out there right now onto this slide just to show you there's so many buzzwords right now, so many strategies, so many methods of delivering learning digitally. So the whole learning industry has changed, has developed, has become digital as well. And just reading through all these keywords, are all of them clear to you, or is there any term that I need to explain? Just anything? Okay, flipped classroom. Flipped classroom is a concept where you basically change when the learner is taking in or is working with the content. So flipped classroom is you give the learners or the students the content up front in like little learning units, like e-learning, for example, video learning, or something like something similar. And later, when they come into the classroom, then that's when they start working with the content. So basically, the learning itself, like the taking in of the content, of the knowledge, is happening before people come prepared to the classroom and then work together with the content in the classroom. So the concept is that it's a lot more engaging, a lot more interactive, and people are prepared, ideally. Doesn't always work, as always, but so that's the concept of a flipped classroom. Collaborative learning or social learning are pretty similar. It's mostly like with the tools nowadays that you can exchange more easily using social media, using chat and devices like that. You can build groups all over the world and exchange through the media and learn a topic. Mobile learning is a real big buzzword right now. Everything starts to be mobile, easy to take with you on a mobile device, and I'm going to come to that later on as well. So now I have a list of 6 trends that I find quite interesting in that digital learning world, which is, the first one is probably not as new to you any longer, which is MOOCs, which is massive open online courses. It's primarily coming from the universities, and it started when one of the professors put his whole lecture online about artificial intelligence, and he's a well-known professor, so everyone wanted to see that, and they were quite surprised that he was offering it for free, and it was the whole course, basically the whole class. And the way he was delivering it was he recorded himself and had the slides playing parallel to that. So it was really the lecture online. Everyone was able to subscribe and go through the whole course with them. And he had thousands of people registered. I don't even know the exact number, but all the other universities were surprised, like, wow, this actually is great. You get a lot of attention for that. It's a great marketing tool for us. So a lot of universities are nowadays jumping onto this trend. And it's been around for some time already, so you've probably you read about it in the news, but now this whole concept of a massive open online course is moving towards the corporate world. So actually larger corporations are discovering it and using it to, for example, reach their customers, doing training, open courses for their customers, how to use their tools, for example. So that's also massive, is really reaching a lot of students, open, it's open for everyone, no barriers. Online, of course, and courses is also clear, I think. So most of the time, especially for universities, it's for free. It's recently starting to be discussed if there should be any fee connected to it, because of course this is also, it needs to be developed, so there are some costs involved in that, and it can actually be quite expensive, especially with all the equipment and video recording and all that. So that's one of the trends. Microlearning is the second trend that I want to introduce here, and which is also really connected to mobile learning. Mobile learning, small devices, oftentimes small screens. So, but microlearning is not micro because of the small screens, but it's small units of learnings, of e-learning. It's basically, yeah, I mean, it's just a snippet of whatever you want to deliver. It can be a video, it can be a one-page documentation. So it's getting smaller and smaller, so that people who are really have a busy schedule can just quickly look at it, take in the information, and then move on. How long do you think should a video be that until you start being dizzy and cannot really follow any longer? How long would be the ideal learning video? What do you think? 7 seconds. Okay, that's a short attention span. Yeah? 5 seconds? It's getting slower and slower. Wow. Shorter and shorter. There was another? It's actually longer, so thank God. I mean, 5 to 7 seconds would be really short, but I think the maximum, and if you go to YouTube, for example, most of the training videos are not more or are not longer than 5 minutes. So 5 minutes should be really the maximum. There are some that are actually longer, but good luck with your students. You might lose them on the way. Informal learning is also something that I think gains more and more importance. I think especially in Germany, we're really looking at certificates, diplomas, and having like a paper that you can show and really prove that you learned all what you learned, and you really you have a degree or something at the end. I think nowadays, since all that information is available, informal learning becomes more and more important, because it can be easier reached. Everyone can subscribe to a MOOC, and all the high-level universities, Harvard and MIT, and all these international universities offer their courses for free. And sometimes you don't even get a certificate. Sometimes you can. So that's also something to be paid or not to be paid for. But so informal learning gains a lot more importance in the nowadays. Also, oops, that's the wrong direction. Also, the role of an instructor is changing, especially with open educational resources, OER, which are now available. Everyone is producing content, and you have open access to it. You don't have to pay for it. So there are all these online courses, all these materials that you can incorporate into your lessons. And so the instructor is not really the instructor per se as we know it from before, but it's more like a facilitator or a counsel, a learning counsel who is helping you to reach, to gain that knowledge that you need. I'm hitting the wrong button all the time, so there you go. This is also something connected to MOOCs, for example. Your students might not be here any longer. They might not be present. They might not meet locally. They might be abroad. They might be, maybe in Asia. They might be in wherever they are interested. And whenever they're interested in your topic, they can subscribe to your MOOC, your massive open online course, as long as they understand the language. And so, yeah, you can reach a lot more people, but this also means like the learning structures are a lot more different. You need to have that, you need to be able to facilitate the learning process by having an environment that supports it. Which brings me to learning communities. MOOCs, actually, I don't know if you've heard about the two main kinds of MOOCs. One is the X-MOOC and one is the C-MOOC. C stands for collaborative. So it means that people are working together on a topic They have blogs, for example, they document what they're learning. And it's not really like one instructor telling them what to do. It's more like they learn together and kind of approach the content through that. For XMOOCs, it's more the classical e-learning course. It's a linear course. You have certain materials that you need to work through and have a test at a certain defined time to prove that you learned what you're supposed to learn. So with learning communities, it's more like an CMOOC, more collaborative. You come together, you can have it locally, you can have it online, wherever and however that works best for you. So this is, since we just didn't have that many people in the industry, in the e-learning industry, I just had some tips that I thought might be interesting, like how can you develop for an international audience, actually an international program, or in my case, an international e-learning course. What do you need to be aware of? So localization obviously is a big factor. You need to not only have the language translated, but you also need to make sure that it delivers the right message to the learners. And of course, the main factors are text and pictures. So text is easier because you can translate word by word, but you also need to make sure that you don't use pictures, you don't use things that are just maybe locally known, like sports. It's usually, like in America, people like to use sports or movie examples. And so that won't necessarily work, since not everyone is really up to date with MBA or whatever is going on right now. So that's one topic. Of course, political, religious topics need to stay out of the course, so it needs to be really neutral on that perspective, really focused on the topic. The other thing is also with the pictures, some people, like for example, one anecdote from my company, they developed, they had a picture developed which was supposed to be like a camp, and they made the bull's horn, like a sign with a bull's horn to greet people, because in the US it's like, hey, high five and whatever, so welcome. Well, you shouldn't do that in Italy, for example, because Italians are they get really mad, because that's like, well, I don't want to say it now, only since this is recorded, but it's really bad, trust me on that. So these are things you need to consider. So some signs or symbols may have a different meaning for you and other people in other countries and other cultures. Also color use, like white, sometimes it's like, for us, it's white as the color of joy, of, you know, you get married in white. In some countries, it's the color of grief. So when someone dies, they wear white. So just these little things that you need to be aware of when you develop your course. So it's usually better to work with local partners just to make sure that you deliver the right message to your learners. Cultural norms is basically going into that direction. It's really the image and text, no cultural phrases, and yeah, work with local partners. So actually I already went into that topic. The time zones, that's a challenge. If you're working with someone in Asia, Europe, and the United States, maybe in California, then it's really difficult to find the same time to make a meeting. I mean, someone from that whole list will have to make, adjustments to their schedule, either get up really early in the morning or stay up late at night, so you can really get together. And if you're a team lead in an international team like that, you really need to make sure that it's not always the same guy who stays up late or gets up early, because they won't like that either. So it's a logistic challenge just to get that going. And also, what I find from the meetings with my team is video conferencing really becomes important. Just to see the mimics, to have some personal impression of your colleagues, really makes a difference. So what we also started to do is have team meetings, local team meetings, where we meet from time to time, just to get, like, besides doing business, also have some fun together, and I don't know, have like normal conversations that you would usually have in an office. So that really makes a big difference for the whole atmosphere in the team. Well, and the last thing, consistency, you've seen this on slide number 2 already, is use a style guide. Come up with a style guide, also not for visuals, but also for language. What kind of language do you want to deliver? What tone do you want to use? What atmosphere do you want to have in your e-learning course? I mean, this can also be easily used for website as well. Like when you localize a website, what message do you want to deliver? And what impression do you want to leave? Yeah, and then also have a quality assurance program, which is really key here because not all translators have the same quality. So also local partners come in here very handy again. So that's also a good learning that we had. Yeah, and I'm pretty good to my time actually. So this is me. I have a blog where I write an article on e-learning once a week, so feel free to check it out. You can follow me on Twitter under my Nicola Appel account or my professional account, which is articulate_de. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Just there here.
Thank you, Nicola. Do we have any questions?
Too much info.
Yeah, so I guess we learned that there's quite some room for improvement here, especially in digitization, which could be improved in Germany definitely, and also e-learning. I guess there are other parts of the world are much better than we here in Germany. We continue now with a so-called spotlight, which is a short event announcement. So I'd like to have Florian Wurster here from the communication camp. Florian is talking about communication for a good cause. So go ahead.
Okay, so sorry. The video was put in just a little late and I didn't plan on showing it, so I might show it afterwards. Our first sheet should be this one here. Yeah, right. Okay, so communication, that's a huge word. And communication can serve many purposes. The one I want to focus on today is doing good through communication. Doing good for other people, helping those in need, is an important part of our society. Luckily, there are many people already doing this. Organizations, NGOs, you know what I'm talking about. But some of them could do better, because they know how to help people, but they don't really know how to communicate themselves. Many of them you might not even know about. They have poor websites, the press is not really interested in them. Most people don't even know they exist. They simply don't have the money for good PR. So it's our idea to improve their communication. We from Hochschule Darmstadt and Quäntchen Glück have that project, and we are working together with Radio Darmstadt and Darmstädter Echo and also the Stadt Darmstadt and hopefully you. And that's why I'm here today. I want to recruit some of you, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Sorry, my first presentation today. So on 2 days, we help a selected organization improve their communications. This is also a chance for you to meet other people who work in the communication branch. Some of you already joined us last year, and I hope some of you will again this year. So for what do we need your help this year? Out of a list of 15 applications, and after putting a lot of thought into it, we chose Netzwerk Asyl in Mühltal. Netzwerk Asyl is an organization that focuses on helping people who sought asylum and shelter in Germany. People who are often having trouble in integrating and mostly, handling their daily lives here. So they often don't speak German, have problems talking to authorities, maybe bringing their children to school, talking to directors, or just visiting a doctor. They need help with that. The number of people seeking refuge here in Germany will continue rising. Many of them are here to stay. The 30 volunteers at Netzwerk Asyl want to help those people integrate. One of the issues the network faces is the accommodation of the refugees in our area. As you can imagine, there's some discussion going on about how and where the newly arrived should be housed. Also, network don't have a budget for PR. That's why we chose them. That's one of our most important points, because if they had a budget, they didn't need us. You as communication specialists can help make sure things go smoothly and also create an understanding for the situation the asylum seekers are in. We from Communication Camp see the network as a chance to, together with you, create a good basis of communication for asylum seekers and also between the other organizations in the area. If we manage to create that good basis, others can benefit from that as well. We are looking for media specialists who want to do good by communication. Texters, graphical artists, coders, PR specialists, journalists, and people speaking several languages like Arabic, French, or maybe even African languages. We want to give the network a good website, help them write press releases, take good photos, and so on, because they really need it. Nobody knows of them. So if you want to do good through communication, go to our website and apply. You can also find more information there, which I would have shown you in the video, but it wouldn't have fit into the spotlight. So, oh, and the communication camp is going to be in German, so you don't have to handle with my stuttering. We're looking forward to seeing you on the 3rd and 4th of July. Thank you.
Thank you, Florian. But just say it, the link.
No, it's gone.
Okay, just, what is the link?
Communication-camp.org.
Communication-camp.org.
Yeah, it should be on the other sheet.
Yeah, okay, no matter. So we have now another spotlight before the break. So we have Daniel Kuchai, from the Pitch Club, which is some event for giving entrepreneurs and startups the chance to pitch their business idea. So please, go ahead.
Hi guys, thanks for having us here. Before we start, this is Stefan and I'm Daniel, and before we start, we would like to show you a short video. I think it's pretty self-explaining and it pretty much gives you an idea of what the Pitch Club is. I just fired it up.
Ich fand es hochinteressant, eine ganze Reihe verschiedener Unternehmen zu sehen. Und ich denke, es ist an der Zeit wieder, nach 15 Jahren, dass solche Ideen gefördert werden. Und da hoffe ich, dass der Pitch Club zu beiträgt.
Sehr, sehr gutes Format. Ich bin gespannt, was die neue Location ist. Also Rhein-Main-Gebiet ist ja etabliert durch Banken, Wirtschaftsprüfer, Rechtsanwälte. Und das sehen wir auch bei uns. Wir haben relativ viele Probleme jetzt mit neuen, jungen Branchen. Und deswegen finde ich es gut, dass es gemacht wird.
Und aus diesem Grund finde ich, ist der Pitch Club eine sehr wichtige Geschichte, weil, sag ich mal, die ganze Start-up-Szene hier in Frankfurt bisher unter dem Radar der Banken war.
Was gefällt dir am Pitch Club besonders gut?
Ich fand das Format cool, weil es eine offene Plattform war. Erstmal hier in Frankfurt auch wirklich spannende Investoren mit spannenden Startups zusammenbringt. Und genau das braucht die Stadt noch viel mehr.
Ich denke, es ist ein gutes Format im kleinen Kreis. Ja, hochqualitative Pitches einfach zu hören. Ich denke, was anderes. Viele substanziellere Themen. Ja, ist schon ein bisschen Frankfurt, Rhein-Main. Ich glaube, die Themen sind weniger vom Hype getrieben, sondern mehr fundiert.
Startups hervorragend, also teilweise sehr weit, sehr reif und sehr hochqualitativ.
Also ich denke mal, das könnte so eine unter anderem eine Initialzündung sein, weil es sowas, wie gesagt, in Frankfurt nicht gibt, aber das Frankfurter Umfeld ist hervorragend. Neugründungen und Unternehmensgründungen zu pushen. Hier ist das Kapital, ein riesen Einzugsgebiet und vor allem sind ja auch Unternehmen, in denen man die Produkte dann weiterverkaufen kann. Also beste Voraussetzungen.
Aber ich glaube, man braucht immer die Möglichkeit, oder man muss immer den Unternehmern die Möglichkeit geben, zu pitchen und dran zu feilen, mit interessanten Leuten zusammenzukommen. Und ich glaube, so ein bisschen informelles Format, das gab es bisher nicht so recht.
That's it. So thanks again. We're gonna keep it really, really short. Just tell you some sentences about the event, how it was born, and if you have some questions, we'll open up a Q&A round at the end. So the idea was born about a year ago. So we are having our first birthday, the 1st of July this year. We saw a very strong demand for an event that really brings together early stage companies with investors that are really interested in investing money in the companies. We are really pissed that all the interesting companies see Berlin as the promised land, and even though there are really great ideas, great universities, bright companies, a great infrastructure, and what is needed the most in the startup business, namely the money, there is a lack of infrastructure, and that's what we actually wanted to change. And we brought an event to life that brings the entrepreneurs together with investors that are interested in investing serious money in the early stage.
Okay, hi, my name is Stefan. I'm also a founder of the Pitch Club and managing director. And I don't forget, it's still Monday evening, so I try to keep it short. What we do with the next event will take place on July the 1st. And we are still, and we're already and all the time looking for interesting startups with a proof of concept, with scalability, with a great management team. So feel free to apply. And the next thing is, of course, we are also looking for investors. The event takes place, as mentioned, on July the 1st. We start at 2:30 p.m. at the Frohsein. That's in between the city center of Frankfurt. It's Turn- und Taxispalais. You find more information on our homepage. It's thepitchclub.com. And what else? Yeah, apart from that, because it's an invite-only event, we have like seats for 60 to 80 people. We have a startup afterwards to bring together the community. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you over there. Feel free to ask any questions, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Are there any questions that prevent us from going into the break? Please stay here. We have some. Thank you for the presentation, for the nice video, and yeah. So maybe you can meet these guys at the Pitch Club. So now we're going into the break. That means you will see more interesting talks and also some videos after the break. You have now 30 minutes to grab a refreshment in the lounge, to look at the job board and the event board. Yeah, and please be back. It will be a little bit cooler then, because we have the air condition running during the break. So please come back. Thank you. Hello. As you may have noticed, the air condition is shut down, that you hear me speaking. Thank you that at least some people got not lost during the break. We continue now with a short video from Norway, from Oslo, Morten Prom, who's a SAP UX developer. He's telling us about his life in Norway, and we see what we can learn from him.
My name is Morten Prom. I was born and raised in Denmark. I lived a few years in Austria. Now I live in Norway, in the beautiful capital of Oslo. I'm a software programmer. I develop software for big companies running their business on the SAP platform. The last few years, I've focused heavily on mobile development, using the open source SAP framework called Fiori, also known as UI5 in the open source environment. In my spare time, I ride my bike in this beautiful country, and I try to capture it on photo with my camera. The internet. The internet is important for me, both professionally and privately. My whole profession is based on the internet. As a mobile developer, without the internet, my customers would have nothing to do with their apps. I try to predict the future. In 5 or 10 years, maybe 50% of our jobs that we know today will be gone. So if we predict the future, maybe we can be among the 50% that will still have a job. Privately, I stay connected with friends all over the world through social media. And I get my news through the media, through the internet. I get my music, my literature, my movies, all through the internet. In Norway, we are very connected with high-speed internet almost everywhere. In the cities, if you go in the mountains, you will pretty soon see that you have no connection at all. What do my country offer? Norway is well known for its beautiful nature. Many German tourists come here to enjoy the mountains and go fishing in the beautiful fjords. We are known for oil as well. Our industry and our economy is heavily based on the industry of oil. Many German businesses do business with our oil companies. The problem is that we are not quite sure what we will do in 30 years when the oil runs out. What will we do in the post-oil era? Cool startup. The Norwegian government encourages innovation through the organization Innovation Norway. My own business was funded this way when we developed a mobile app targeting the German market through our German business partner Nextquant. Fortruck is one cool Norwegian startup. They are transforming businesses by securely connecting customer identities with a digital vault. They build seamlessly connecting relationship across applications, devices, and digital connected things. When Norwegian citizens connect with any public service, they are authenticated through software developed by Fortruck. Guidance. The USA has always had a big influence on Norway. We used to have a lot of influence from England, but now we focus our attention pretty much in the center of Europe, and especially Germany, which seems to be the one holding the whole EU together. Public Wi-Fi. It's you as a user in Norway that is reliable in what you do, not the internet provider. If you do something illegal on your public Wi-Fi access spot or whatever, it's your responsibility, not the provider.
So thank you, Morten, who should be on the live stream currently. So I guess we can learn something in regards of innovation, maybe in connectedness. So there are some room for improvement left. I want to have Markus Tacker now on stage. Some of you know him. He's software developer and organizer of Webmontag Offenbach, which is, I think, 2 weeks. In 2 weeks.
No, a month after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm too lazy to do it every month. So.
And Markus is presenting us the startup weekend.
Yeah, hello Frankfurt. We already had some startup topics on stage, so I'd like to give you one of my most favorite events of the year, and it's called the Startup Weekend. So it's 45 hours starting Friday night until Sunday evening, where you pitch your idea, find your team, and build it over the weekend. And on Sunday afternoon, you will be pitching before a crew of international and well-vetted investors and judges. So we tried to make that date publicly available a little earlier this year. So it will be held in September 25th to 27th. There's a pre-registration for the tickets, which is a nice way of saying there's a newsletter form on that webpage. It's on Startup Weekend Rhein-Main. The official hashtag is SWRM15, and follow us on our Twitter to receive updates. Thank you very much.
It's great event. I really can recommend it. I attended this twice, and it's really worth it. So now we have our last talk for this evening, the last long talk. I want to have Philipp, Neub, and Sven Niedner on stage, please. Please welcome them. They're talking about a startup called Avamo, which is about it's kind of a credit bureau similar to the German Schufa, and they're working mainly in Africa, as I understood it, and the talk is about digitization of microfinance in emerging countries. So,
thank you, Roland, for the introduction, and good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Philipp, and in the next few minutes, I would like to give you a case study of what it actually means to work internationally, which is what we do, as we just heard, and then my colleague Sven will give you some insights on the actual IT aspects of what we are doing. So just a very brief overview on the company. We're based out of Frankfurt, but my co-founder is actually based in Uganda, in Kampala, for those who don't know where that is. Here it is. Both of us have been working in Africa and with Africa for more than 10 years, which is why we came up with this idea. And microfinance and scoring is also what combines our team. Our goal is to actually drive down the interest rates in the microfinance sector so that loans, a credit someone takes from a small finance institution, become cheaper so more people can get access to finance. So it's a for-profit business model, but at the same time with a social impact that more people get access to finance. So when people talk about the world and doing business, this is typically the picture they have in mind. They see every continent, but they forget about one thing, and that's Africa. And Africa is not just the one place. You often hear the comment, there's this country, or it's a big country. But actually it's 54 countries with very different cultures, with very different drive, different political systems, and so on. And actually there are loads of opportunities which the majority of the business world are currently overseeing. And the reason for that is this picture that we typically get transported through the media. So I won't read out all the words to you, but when you have a look at the slide, you will see what typically are the associations when people think about Africa. But there's another side to it, and that's actually the demographics are quite promising. While in Europe, the population is getting older and older, we have more people being retired and living long lives with a very small workforce. In Africa, the picture is quite different. So we actually have a very young workforce, and it's growing tremendously. So we have other topics like the infrastructure, for example. Yes, roads are poor in some cases, and people often say, yeah, but you don't have a landline phone, for example. That's true, because they don't need the landline phone, because they just skipped this development stage and they just went straight to mobile. So you might not have LTE everywhere, but if you go out to towners here in Frankfurt, you might not have mobile connectivity. If you go out in the savannah in, for example, Kenya, you will have mobile connectivity. So developments are slightly different, and we've been talking, or one of the topics here at the evening is what can we in Germany learn from other parts of the world. And I would say, for example, if you look at mobile payments, then I would definitely go to Africa and try to learn from them, because while we are still dealing a lot with cash here, and some people are now using debit and credit cards, in Africa everybody is paying by mobile phone, it's just common. The GDP rates show that actually the growth in these markets, and it basically applies to almost every African country, are significantly higher than in most other parts of the world, including Asia. So let's have a look at the finance market in sub-Saharan Africa. And this is an based on the example of Uganda, but the similar figures apply to pretty much all the countries. Maybe take out the northern countries in the Maghreb region and South Africa. But what you typically see is you have between 30 and maybe 60 banks, financial institutions which are regulated by a central bank. And then you have, like in the case of Uganda, more than 2,000, in the case of Kenya, more than 4,000 microfinance institutions. A microfinance institution is basically like a small bank, but with very limited services, and they typically don't take deposits. So you can't have savings with them or only with very strict restrictions. And many of these institutions are actually quite small. So we have a pilot customer in Uganda and they have 3 employees, 1 doing sales and 2 back office. If you look at the population, you have about 20% of the population with access to a formal financial institution, to a regular bank. The other 80% of the adult population don't have this. They have either access to microfinance or they don't have access to finance at all. Of these 20% in the regulated sector, the current credit bureaus, and a credit bureau is comparable to what we know as Schufa, for example, in Germany, the credit bureaus cover only about 25%, which makes about 5% of the adult population. These credit bureaus have been in existence for 5, in some cases 10 years, and in most markets you have 1 or 2 of them. What is the function of a credit bureau? Because most people here hearing about it say, they are the ones determining if I get a loan or not. Actually, it's not the case. What they do is they collect the data on your credit histories. So they check, did you pay your bills? Did you pay back your loans? And based on this, they do a risk analysis and tell the bank, this is a high risk of not getting the loan paid back or not. In microfinance, there is no such system. And most microfinance institutions work entirely paper-based. And I'll show you a couple of pictures here. So what you see on the top left is actually the archive. So when you have your client file, this is where they store it. And if you need to look up something, then you start digging in these boxes. Everything is written down manually. You see meetings with loads of paper on the table. A lot of transactions are being handled in cash if it's small sums that are being paid back. But more and more, we see that these cash payments are actually being replaced by mobile payments. And we are going to integrate with mobile payments solutions as well. And then, this is my favorite picture here at the bottom right. It's actually the reporting system. So every paper roll is a daily report. And if you have 20 rolls, you have 20 working days in a month. Such a bundle is then the monthly report. Now start analyzing the credit risk. I think that's a bit difficult. And then there's another problem in the sector, and that's that microfinance institutions cannot identify their borrowers because either there is no ID system in place, as was the case in Uganda until recently, or if you have ID systems in place and passports, they are very often counterfeit. So even the big banks are struggling with this. All this results in the costs for giving out a loan being very high, and the risk associated with a loan not getting paid back is very high as well. And because of that, the finance institutions have no chance but to actually charge interest rates of 60% and more. And we're going to change this with the use of technology. We have basically developed what we call a mobile office. It's a tablet PC, it's a fingerprint scanner attached to identify the person. And this device is running a software that we developed, and this software helps doing all the data capturing now digital, whereas before everything was written down in paper. The mobile network is actually quite well developed. I've said that before, and actually I met someone just downstairs in the break who told me, yeah, in Africa, a friend of mine just told me from Benin and Ghana that actually no matter where you go, you always are connected. And that's exactly the case, and that's why we can use these mobile offices to actually transmit the data we capture in real time to the database. On the other side, we have a management information system, a customer relationship management system, which helps the institutions to then analyze the data. So they now, for the first time, have an overview of their portfolio. They know who owes them how much money. They know who's due to pay back. They can see the performance of their loan officers. So are they actually giving out loans, or are they just chatting the whole day? And then it will take a while, probably 1.5 years, we will have accumulated sufficient data to then give out credit reports. This is what I described before. We are not saying this person should get a loan or not. We just say, how high is the risk? And then it's up to the finance institution to say, do we want to give a loan? And if yes, which interest rate do we charge? And if it's a borrower who comes back and pays every time, the interest rate will go down. Now, what happens if the borrower does not pay back? Well, actually, this borrower is protected against over-indebtedness, which is one of the topics that brought microfinance a bit in a shady light in the last couple of years, because there were a couple of people killing themselves when they couldn't pay back the loans. This is what we're going to prevent. We are actually working with a pilot customer already, and this is where you can see the application in use. So we have a motor taxi driver who's at the microfinance institution currently getting registered and giving the customer information. And now Sven will tell you a bit more about the IT side of things.
Okay, thank you, Philipp. So what you heard up to now is a nice plan, a quite thorough design of business processes, and a really good idea, good business idea. And to make this actually happen, it needs to be transformed into software. So what do we need? We need developers. Maybe first question, who in the room is a developer? Do we have developers in the room? Oh, there are a few. That's good. Okay, so I will briefly outline what we're planning to do. Basically, we have several key ingredients of the whole story. The first you learned is biometrics, fingerprint analysis. Second is development of a mobile app running on a tablet. Third thing is a bank. Actually, from our discussions, we learned we need a full banking core backend. This sounds crazy. I will explain in a minute how we will do this. And fourth, we need something like scoring and big data technology to develop the individual predictions of risk for the customers. So this makes, in my opinion, a pretty attractive technology mix, but also a challenging one, because it covers almost every topic that is hot today in the developer community. I'll talk about the bank aspect first, because developing banking software from scratch seems to be a crazy idea. There are two things that help. First thing is that we are not regulated as banks are regulated in Europe. So most of the complexity in today's banking comes from regulation, and we won't see this. Second is the problem that we're trying to solve has been solved before. There's an open source software out there called MyFOSX that is highly customizable and provides all the banking functionality that is needed for a microfinance institution. It's developed by an international software developer community, mostly based, I think, in India, and it brings all the transaction types that we need. So we don't need to worry about this. And this is really a big positive for the software development, because otherwise this would be perhaps the most complex and most ugly part to build on our own. Second thing is that to make this all happen, we need to somehow organize the communication with the mobile app, and we need to implement the mobile app. And then we need to develop all the enabling functions like biometric authentication, and what else do I say, the scoring engine, and we need to integrate with a local infrastructure of payment, which in Africa is typically mobile payment. Did you mention mobile payment? You did, okay. So this is perhaps the most familiar way of paying money in Africa, and we need to somehow listen on the transactions and make them appear in our banking transaction system. And then one day we need to connect external data sources like perhaps weather forecast information to further refine the computation of credit risk. And this all will be done in something like, I think 9 months are planned. So from the beginning, from the start, which is pretty soon now, we take ourselves 9 months of time to develop the software and then start with the first customer, have a pilot use. And so we're currently looking for people who want to make this happen. And to give you an idea of what skills are required to do this, this is the technology mix that we would use in our project. And this is not fixed, so if you say, I can do it better using Python, we need to talk. But this is up to now the plan, the blueprint that we designed for the software platform in question. The whole thing should be running in an agile fashion. So we want to be an agile startup. And remember, I learned the 3-letter acronym TIA. This is Africa. So this is not as stable, as predictable as German business would be. So I personally expect the requirements to change over time. First customer contact and perhaps a new view of the world, new feedback needs to be incorporated. So we want to be agile, we want to be flexible, and we want to be working in a continuous fashion, iterative fashion, to deliver something that meets the customer's expectations at the first day of delivery. Okay, so I hand over to you. These are your prizes.
Yeah, I don't want to go into detail on this, but I think it shows that the concept has been developed over the last 1.5 years and got some traction and got some attention. It helped us to actually bring on board a couple of reputable partners, which I won't mention here, I don't want to advertise, but I think we are looking to expand the team. We are highly motivated. We have experience in different fields, and what we are lacking is actually an IT team that can help us make this real. And so if you would like to have more information on this, please feel free to contact us either later here or go on our website and find a couple of detailed job profiles. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention, and we're happy to take any questions you might have. Thank you.
So thank you for the talk. Are there any questions? Are there any?
There's a question.
A question. Ooh.
If nobody else has a question, I've got one. And it is, I could imagine that you're not alone in this business area. So isn't there just a whole lot of people who are doing similar attempts at least? So you get a tough competition, and you don't look like you live in Africa all the time. So maybe that you are not as respected as other competitors are.
Both are good questions. Is there competition? Surprisingly not, and it surprised us ourselves. There are credit bureaus in almost every country. They focused on the regulated sector, and when we found out that nobody is actually addressing the microfinance sector, we started wondering as well, why is nobody taking this huge market? I mean, I showed you 80% of the population don't even have access to a regular account, and 95% of the adult population are not covered by a credit bureau. The potential is just immense. So what we found out when we looked at this was that the existing credit bureaus have a pretty traditional business model. So they are sitting and waiting, and they rely on regulation, on regulation, forcing the banks to share their information in a specified format. In our sector, there is no regulation, because even if there was a regulator, there would be nothing to regulate. The microfinance institutions don't have the information to share. And so there is no regulation. And then the existing credit bureaus that have been in place for, in some cases, over 10 years, they are still taking so much time to capture the regulated market that even if they started competing, the market would be way large enough for the existence of several bureaus. And probably what would happen in that case is that one bureau concentrates on one region in the country and the other on the other region, because basically the benefit from sharing credit information always comes with the same users and the same providers in the same region. And typically microfinance is a very local business, so it wouldn't even harm if that happened. But it's not so easy to copy, and that brings us to the second question you asked, if we are respected in Africa, and you pointed out I'm white, that's actually true. But I think the reason why we are respected is that we have been working on the ground for several years. And we've been working with local teams. We were not the expatriates telling the African what to do, but we were actually open to learn what is being done differently in these markets. And I pointed out it's 54 different countries and 54 different markets. Not everything is the same, even though, of course, there are similarities as they are in Europe or US or Asia as well. But our partners got to know us for a long period of time. They've been working with us. We've been referred by some partners to other partners, and that's how we built the trust. And this is also a reason why this is nothing that can be copied very easily, because trust relationships are very important in Africa, more than I would say here. Does this answer your question? Good.
Okay, any more questions? No. So, thank you for your interesting talk and this interesting insight to microfinancing. I think we definitely can learn something out of that, also about connectivity. I'm not quite sure if we should be like how you call it, TIA with the topic of regulations. Maybe this may not be a good idea. So now we have another short video. It's from one of our Web Monday organizers, Jan Eggers, who's pitching for the German TV from ARD ZDF Hackathon. So yeah, and he's looking for people who like to join that.
Okay, sind wir soweit? Ich kann dich hören. Legen wir los, ne? Bruder nochmal? Nee, machen wir jetzt. Okay. Guten Abend, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren. Mein Name ist Jan Eggers und ich arbeite für die ARD. Laut jüngsten Studien haben klassische Medienhäuser es schwer, mit der Innovationskraft und Schnelligkeit von Medien-Startups Schritt zu halten. Um diese Lücke zu schließen, will das Bildungswerk von ARD und ZDF mit einer neuen Form arbeiten, dem sogenannten Hackathon. Diese völlig neue Form der Entwicklungsveranstaltung soll bereits in einigen Jahren auch bei ARD und ZDF... einen Moment bitte. Ich höre eben, wir bekommen neue Bilder zugespielt. Ich weiß auch nicht, worum es da jetzt geht. Vielleicht schauen wir einfach mal rein. Jetzt im Ernst. Ich bin Jan und wenn ihr öfter beim Webmontag seid, dann sind wir uns sicher schon mal begegnet. Ich bin seit Jahren hier und bin großer Fan des Webmontags, weil ich als Medienmacher, als Medienmensch es unheimlich spannend finde, wenn Medienleute zusammenkommen mit Codern, Hackern, Webentwicklern, Netzbürgern, kommt eigentlich immer was Spannendes bei raus. Und weil ich die Ehre habe, den nächsten Hackathon der ARD-ZDF Medienakademie zu moderieren am 17. und 18. Juni in Hannover, habe ich gedacht, ich nutze die Gelegenheit, um auch hier nochmal für die Veranstaltung zu werben. Das letzte Mal waren alle, die daran teilgenommen haben, ziemlich geflasht, waren sehr begeistert. Es sind Sachen rausgekommen wie eine Tatortreiniger-App, wie ein Newsmixer. Dass auch diesmal was Spannendes bei rauskommt, dafür kann natürlich keiner garantieren. Auch nicht dafür, dass die Projekte dann am Ende alle umgesetzt werden tatsächlich. Aber ich glaube, wofür wir garantieren können, ist, es wird spannend und wir werden eine Menge Spaß haben. Würde mich freuen, euch zu sehen.
So, thank you. Unfortunately, our last speaker got lost on his way from Tibet back to Frankfurt. Oliver Emler, who's a medical doctor, emergency medic and agile coach, half and half, and he's organizing emergency teams, for example, in Haiti or now in Tibet. And yeah, his plane was delayed, so this would be the end. We have just one request from the audience. Ralf is going to make a short announcement about an event regarding smart home, I guess, so please come on stage. We have no slides prepared.
Mm-hmm. Hi, my name is Ralph, and we're going to have an evening next week on Tuesday at 7 p.m. It's called Home Smart Home, How Inhabitable is the Future, and we're gonna raise a question: what is changing if the operation system makes our building smart? So maybe the refrigerator is communicating, having a dialogue with a heater or whatever, and we're not gonna speak with the objects, but with some experts. So there's gonna be Adeline Seidel, she's from a architecture platform, and Professor Martina Klele, she's from the University of Applied Science, and Jonathan Busse, he's developing operating systems, and he kind of equipped the first smart home in Stuttgart. So we're gonna see what is really changing with the smart building. So it's gonna be at Römerberg 9 at the Evangelische Akademie Frankfurt next week, Tuesday, the 19th of May from 7 p.m. till 9 a.m. next week, Tuesday. So thank you and hope to see some of you.
Thank you. So I hope we learned, or you learned something about other countries and what we in Germany can improve here. So as I said, the last speaker is missing, so I have just some closing slides here, which will be started. Yeah, so this was the 70th Web Monday Frankfurt International. Thank you again, Brotfabrik, for having us here. Thanks to our sponsors, which are Hayes Recruitment, DMR Solutions, Arago, Die Zentrale, and maybe one day we'll find your logo here, so we are actually looking for more sponsors. The next event is Code is Poetry on the 13th of June, sorry. That's, mistake. So, 13th of June. If you're interested in having a talk here, so please go to our website, wmfra.de/Vortrag, and apply for that. We also have a newsletter to keep you updated, wmfra.de/newsletter. And that's it. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the speakers for the interesting talks, and hope to see you soon here. Thank you.
Webmontag.